Hot stock market. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. Everyone's a little bit concerned about the pace of the stock market gains. If you look tonight, the futures are up on the positive side. People are concerned that they could get blown to bits with positive sentiment. Let's look at the stock market, okay? So the reference being used, the comparison, is the dot-com bubble, which burst in 2000. Everyone's comparing the stock market now, the gains, with the exuberance of the NASDAQ run-up back in the mid-late 90s. Okay, so what's the history of that? In 1994, NASDAQ at the end of the year was at about 1,000. It rose to 4,000 in only 5 years. It quadrupled in only 5 years. And then it sank to 1,800. 1,000 up to 4,000, back down to 1,800. So today's point of comparison, the stock market gains, are being compared to that. Is it reasonable? Is it rational? I would argue no. Things are much different now. I will explain why, okay? Back in the 90s, the gains in the NASDAQ that drove it to 4,000 were driven by fear of missing out exuberance. Okay, now here's how it went. Many of you probably were not fully aware of computing back then. But in the 1990s, the Mac GUI, the graphical user interface, had been around for, not quite a decade. Windows 3, huge product. Windows 3 for the PC was the graphical user interface for the Windows PC. So Mac had its own GUI. Windows 3 sort of copied the look and feel, and they got sued for it. And they won the lawsuit. Microsoft won that lawsuit. And Unix had the X-Window graphical user interface. Graphical user interface added to computers, the Mac, Unix, and the PC, were really taking off, especially that product. That product in the 1990s took Microsoft to a new level. Macintosh had already shown that it was a good way to go. Apple sued Microsoft and lost that lawsuit. So now there's a graphical user interface that was added to the old internet. The internet had been around for a couple of decades by the 1990s. It was text-based. It was basically typing text on a terminal or on a computer that did not have a graphical user interface. The internet had been around for a while. Suddenly, the internet gets a facelift that is in the same sort of, it was in rhythm with the graphical user interface on the Macintosh, on the PC, on Unix systems. Tim Berners-Lee invented the hypertext markup language, HTML. And so now the internet is starting to take off, and everybody is assuming huge opportunity. Many assumed there was a lot of opportunity, and there was. But everyone was early, because at home, we only had, in those days, 64K dial-up. Okay? Try stuffing real-time video packets in 64K. It's not going to work. It will not work. Netflix, as we know it today, was not streaming real-time video to people's homes. They were sending CDs in the mail, in the postal service mail. If you were lucky and your local provider had ISDN, you could double the home speed to 128K. So nowadays we have 100 megabytes, 300 megabytes, a gigabyte at home, right? Fiber optic at home. We had 128K on a good day back then. You could not run real-time video back then. So there was a lot of exuberance, there was a lot of opportunity, but the hardware was missing. We did not have the hardware infrastructure. That was back in the mid-late 90s, 2000. So bandwidth and most profits were absent. And then everybody figured that out and the stock market crashed. When people realized sort of that people were showing up to a racetrack with a 1950s 60 horsepower Volkswagen, and people sold. They got rid of their stocks. Is that going to happen this time? No way. Things are completely different. The underlying hardware that everyone has access to is so far above what we had back then. It's incredible. The bandwidth people have at their home is not an issue. It's not a factor. And there are business models that are working. There are business models that are making profits selling AI services. So what are those? Okay. Well, first, here's a little bit of a detour, a slight detour, a story about a guy who sold at the wrong time. Masayoshi Son, who started SoftBank, he owned 5% of NVIDIA. he sold his whole stake in 2019. He sold the entire thing for $5 billion, which, if you think about it, in 2019, $5 billion, okay, he did well. He sold out, he got $5 billion, right? That stake is worth over $150 billion now, right? 5 years later, he missed out on $145 billion if he had only held on to that stock. Selling at the wrong time is a thing. It does happen. This is not a dumb person. Masayoshi Son, he started SoftBank. That is not a stupid person. That is an intelligent person. It can happen to very intelligent people who do not understand what humans want and need. So, for example, if you can imagine what internet searching would be like right now if there was no artificial intelligence, if you can imagine how much worse it would feel, you can get an idea of what the real human need for artificial intelligence is. If you've been using any kind of searching online, because most likely you've been getting assistance from artificial intelligence, searching has really improved. You spend a lot less time looking for what you want. You usually type in your question, bam, you get a solid answer immediately. You don't have to search through many pages in different search engines. You get a solid answer right away. So people need that. It has not, it's like when people switched from horse and buggies to motorized vehicles, they're not going back to horse and buggies. No one, except the Amish, right? No one's going back to horse and buggy. Once you give humans a leg up, they are going to insist on it. They're going to insist on it. And AI is the same. So is bandwidth an issue now like it was back in the 1990s? No, not even close. There's so much bandwidth at most of our homes, especially with Starlink, right? Starlink is hitting all these countries that didn't have internet. So this guy, very smart person, really blew it. Boy, did he miss out on a huge fortune, $145 billion? Wow. So you can read about that story online. So how are profits being made with artificial intelligence right now? This is important, okay? Because you want to be able to justify, okay, I'm buying these stocks or I'm buying ETFs that are AI related. They have footprints in AI. Are they making money? Answer is yes. Artificial intelligence as a service, pay-as-you-go subscription models. Those are making money. AI-enabled applications like GitHub, Copilot, Notion AI. There are a lot of software applications that have been improved with the addition of AI, and either the price of the product has been increased and/or an AI-assisted version of that same product is available at a higher cost, and so profits are being made there. So that's a couple of ways profits are being made right now with AI. A third way, a little bit controversial, payroll expense has been reduced. So like it or not, you have to mention this, right? Because we're talking about are stock prices justified, artificial intelligence stock prices. Okay, so payroll is generally the biggest expense for companies. Right now, companies do not need to hire as many people, and they can lay people off. So they're really cutting the payroll expense. Now, there are some people who are unhappy with that. I'm really sorry that's affecting some people. As a software engineer, someone who came out of Berkeley with a software engineering degree, I did quite well with that. I'm not sure I'd want to be graduating college with a software engineering degree right now because the market is a little. So I totally get the frustration if you have kids in college studying software development. All of a sudden, it looks like the career is shaky. I'm really sorry that's happening, but we're talking about justifying stock prices. The stock market, is it inflated with artificial intelligence? Not really. Okay, there are paths to profit. AI as a service, AI-enabled applications. A reduction in the payroll expense, which is the biggest expense for almost all companies. Okay, another way companies are profiting, they're getting to know their customer better in order to sell to them. Collecting data on how you use a company's web service, or however you interact with the company, they're tracking that and trying to figure out how to better sell to customers. So this is not like pets.com in 2000. This is, Netflix got started. Everyone thought, okay, Netflix, internet, movies, right? No, they were sending CDs through the mail. For years, they did that. There was no bandwidth. It's not like that now. We have tons of bandwidth. People are locked in. They have moved from horse and buggies to motorized vehicles and highways. They're not going back to horse and buggies. People are going to demand artificial intelligence more and more and more as use cases increase. Okay, so I couldn't fit everything on the board. What are some of the challenges making money from AI? Okay, the first thing, and this is going to open the door to opportunities. High cost to operate, artificial intelligence. There's the challenge of the freemium model, getting people to upgrade to pay for use. And then there's a need to justify an ROI on all the expense. Okay, so there are power issues, the need for power, the cost of the chips, the GPUs and the TPUs, the size of data centers. Right now, as we speak, if you want to make a fortune in artificial intelligence, it's solving these problems, especially the power issue, the cost of the AI chips, and the size of the data centers. As the footprint of data centers shrinks, as the power needs shrink, as the cost of the chips reduces, it's going to open up a lot more use cases, because a big problem with artificial intelligence is justifying the high cost to operate it right now, because it's all new and everything's kind of clunky. Big, clunky, needs a lot of power. Those problems are going to be solved. The smartest people right now in artificial intelligence are solving those problems. Power, cost of chips, size of data centers, shrinking everything, shrinking the cost of the chips, shrinking the data centers, reducing the power needs. The smart people in the world right now are figuring out how to solve those problems, and then they're going to make fortunes selling the solutions to those. The chip companies stand to, it's not going to be NVIDIA. NVIDIA does not have a vested interest in cutting costs, right? It's going to come from outside, from the ecosystem, the AI ecosystem. People seeing, okay, NVIDIA's making a fortune. They do not have a vested interest in figuring out how to reduce the cost of their chips. I will do that, right? I will figure out how to make cheaper AI chips and sell that solution to other chip companies, right? So there is opportunity in AI. Again, I just want to point out the three opportunities in AI. Reduce the need for power, reduce the cost of the chips, AI chips, and reduce the size of the data centers. Work on those problems, make a fortune. If you have any questions about this, so my opinion is there will be ups and downs in the marketplace. You should buy ETFs, not individual stocks. I mentioned Masayoshi Son and his NVIDIA stake. Okay, this is a very wealthy person. He owns individual stocks. Personally, I don't recommend that. I don't do that. ETFs that have exposure, that have participation in the AI growth, exchange traded funds, fine, right? That's probably the way to go. It's less risky. If you have any questions about this, please post questions in the comments. I want to be optimistic about AI because most of us use it now, and a lot of us don't even realize we're using it. But if they tried taking it away, people would complain. That's a good sign for the price of stocks, AI stocks in the stock market. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Please post questions in the comments. And I really want to thank everyone for watching. Have a great day.